closer to you. We ask now that you will help us to open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts to be aware of your presence with us, to be able to see, hear, and understand what your word says to us. We thank you in the name of Yahushua. Amen. All right. Hi. All right, so Torah portion Mishpatim. Oh, there's not a handout. I actually have a couple of handouts for Mishpatim, but when I look at it, there's 53 mitzvot. There's 53 ordinances, statutes, commandments, whatever you want to call them in Mishpatim. 23 positive, 30 negative. The question that I was struck with was how does anyone do this Torah portion justice, because it's something that we need to read, and based on the little tools that we learned Tuesday, we'll get some more tools this coming Tuesday. It's something to look at Mishpatim with that. I was going to teach some things out of it. The day before yesterday, I had been struck by 3 verses in 20. Now, Mishpatim starts in Shemot 21, but Shemot 20 through 22 in your Hebrew English Torahs, and King Jimmy and all of our other modern Bibles is going to be 24 through 26, jumped out at me, and I was going to put it together in a lesson, and I said, no, to do Mishpatim, and then earlier today it jumps back out at me again, so I figured, okay, well, maybe I should discuss this, but by then it was really not enough time to put it together into a lesson, so we can look forward to having a handout someday on it. Maybe. Chances are good. But if we consider what one of the songs from this evening was, I was made to worship. Okay? I was made to worship. And we get this idea of worship. What is worship? We get this idea of, we're going to sing and praise and all this. It goes beyond that. I was made to be in a relationship with you, and I was made to be able to communicate with you. Basically, I was created to be in agreement and in unity with you from my point of view, understanding your point of view. Because I'm made in the image and likeness of Elohim. I wasn't created to be a yes man, and I wasn't created to be a robot, and I wasn't created to to be like that. I was created to have a conversation with my Elohim, to have a relationship, a real relationship, and a human relationship with something that is beyond human. So when we take a look at these verses from this point of view, we come up with a very interesting idea. Now, Shemot 20, the 10 Commandments are given. And Shemot 20, Shemot 19, at the end of 19, the children of Israel say, everything that Elohim says that we will do. And then at the end of the 10 Commandments, they tell Moses, we can't hear this, you have to listen for us. Okay, so here we've had those choices that we've talked about, but we bring it to these 3 little verses, and hopefully that opens up an understanding of what it is to make that choice truly. So Shemot 20, I say 20 through 22 in your Hebrew English Torahs, I think it's 24 through 26 in the other, says, an altar of earth you shall make to me, and shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep, your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you, and I will bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stones, for if you lift up your tool upon it, you have profaned it. Neither shall you go up by steps unto my altar, that your nakedness not be uncovered on it. All right, so what do we read? We read that, okay, well, if you make an earthen altar and you put a bunch of earth together, these are the commandments for making this, and this is what you're going to sacrifice on this. So we get the idea of making an earthen altar and sacrificing oxen on it and sheep on it and everything else. What is the question that we've learned to ask? What does this mean? Okay. Then we have this other verse that says, okay, well, if you make an altar of stones, don't make it of hewn stones. So we're thinking, okay, well, how do we make an altar of rocks without cutting the rocks? And it's got to be just, perfectly placed rocks, and which, back then they just made a mound of rocks and poof, they were good to go. So again, what does it mean? And then finally, neither shall you go up by my steps unto my altar that your nakedness be not uncovered on it. So, okay, so make sure that it goes up so high so that nobody's peeking up under the skirts. Okay, we can take it from that. But let's break it down a little bit to understand how these verses actually help us to understand how we were made to worship, how were we made to be in unity with our Elohim. It's in the Torah. The Torah tells us how to do these things if we look at it. We have an interesting phrase in verse 20. An altar of stone you shall make to me. Okay? So we have this word for altar, which is something that basically means something that you make an offering on. So something that is made to give an offering. Something that is made to present itself to me. Okay? Then we have this word for earth, which in this case is Adamah. Adamah is a root of the word Adam. Okay? And then we have another interesting word that is the word for make, which is asa, which also means to make, to fabricate, to create. And when we look at the verse in Bereshit where it talks about the creation of the Adam, it says, let us asa Adam in our image and in our likeness. Okay? So in this, we can consider the altar of earth that is made is us. And it is something that is made to Elohim. Okay? We have this word li that means towards me or towards Elohim, and if we consider lamed means something that is created to move towards me, something that is made to enter into a relationship with me. Okay? So here, and the altar of earth you shall make to me, it says you are to be willing to offer yourself to me. Okay? That's the first part of how do I worship. Okay? And shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings. Okay, so we're going to sacrifice on it. Okay, so we have this word for sacrifice, betach. Great. That means to sacrifice, to slaughter, to kill. But it also means to make an offering. Okay? So I'm going to offer what? I'm going to offer a burnt offering. Now, they haven't got into Leviticus yet, because to this point they really haven't screwed it all up and made the golden calf, and the book of Leviticus doesn't have to be written as of yet. But when we get into Leviticus, we'll find that the very first offering is the burnt offering. Now, the burnt offering is one of those offerings that the person that brings the offering doesn't receive anything back from it, nor does the person receiving the offering receive anything back from it. It's a totally voluntary offering. It's an offering that I come because I don't expect anything from you. You don't expect anything from me. So we can look at it in a relationship with our Elohim. We're always, I need, I want, help, I help. if I say I was made to worship you, I was made to be echad with you. You know, when I sit down with a conversation with Trina, it's not, Trina, I want this, I want that, I want the other thing. It's, hi, how are you? How's your day? What do you think about this? You know, she doesn't expect anything from me. I don't expect anything from her. It's the same in our relationships, right? But let's consider this burnt offering thing just a little bit further. The word is olah, okay, which we've translated as burnt offering. But the word olah also means a stairway, something that is made to connect one thing to another. So not only am I an altar of earth that's made to offer to Elohim, not only am I something that is made to have a relationship, not necessarily a give and take relationship, but a real relationship, a friendship relationship, but I'm also created to be a connection, a stairway between the realm of the Adam and the realm of Elohim. Okay? I was created to be connected to my Elohim. We also have this word, well, let's go on to the next one. And your peace offerings, okay? So we have the word for peace offerings, which is shalem. These are voluntary offerings, but they're also offerings of thanks. Okay? So offerings of gratitude. How often do we remember to be grateful to our Elohim for everything? You know, maybe this is picking, I don't know. But we spend a lot of time patting ourselves on the back for all the things that we accomplished, as opposed to realizing that doors were opened for us to take action. Now, we are responsible for taking action. But if Elohim opens a door for us, we're also responsible for seeing the door and making our way to that door and taking action. But a peace offering, shalom, is also to enter into a covenant of peace with our Elohim. So in shalom, it's more than just the idea of peace and all this stuff. It's the idea of being in a covenant with our Elohim. Now, we look at this idea of sheep. Sheep, goats, what specifically are these offered for? The goats, the sheep, a lot of times they're offered for redemptive reasons, for sin offerings and things like this. So in an offering of a sheep, do I recognize that my restoration is dependent on my relationship with my Elohim? If I am an altar that is created to be in connection with my Elohim, and I'm an altar that's made to offer myself to my Elohim, then am I aware of what the two-way relationship is? I offer to my Elohim myself. I offer myself in gratitude. I walk in a covenant of peace with my Elohim. In return, I receive restoration. I receive redemption, deliverance, rest, healing, if I walk in that relationship to the fullest that I'm able to walk in it. Do I walk in that relationship to the fullest that I'm able to walk in it? Oftentimes, we kind of forget, if we're honest with each other, right? All right. So, if we are walking in this relationship, then we come to this phrase, in every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. So, here we have this word, which is zakar, or zakal, to cause my name. But in other words, this word actually means to record, to bring into remembrance, to be reminded of. Okay? So when I remember that I am in a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim, and I understand who it is exactly that I'm in relationship with, I'm not in a relationship with a deity. I'm not in a relationship with some other force. I'm in a specific relationship, just like I'm in a relationship with Trina. There are no other Trinas in my life. Okay? I can be driving down the road and I have a zakal of Trina going through my mind. I remember her. I think about her, because zakal also means our thoughts. When my thoughts are with her, then she is with me. And it's the same way about this. When I build this relationship and I realize that I'm this altar that's made to offer, and I'm this altar that wants to be in a relationship because I want to worship, because I realize I was created to be in this relationship, then Yahuwah Elohim is in my mind. He's in my remembrance. And as such, what does it say? I will come to you and bless you. I will be with you. Okay? I will be with you. So if I think about it in this state of being, can I understand a little bit better what Paul is saying, that I can do all things through Mashiach, who strengthens me? I can do all things through the anointing of Yahuwah, in which I live and move and have my existence, because there is where my strength is. I remember my Elohim, and as a result, my Elohim is watching over me as well, opening doors that I have to become aware of. Okay, so being in agreement and being in unity opens my eyes to be able to see those doors a lot better. Okay? So, and if you make me an altar of stone, let's stop there. If you'll make me an altar of stone. Okay, so we have this word for stone, which is eben, which means something that's hard. It also means it can refer to a hardened heart. It can also refer to something of purity. But the root of eben is bana, which means to be restored, to be renewed. If you will make me an altar, if you will make yourself an altar that is in a restored state of being, if you are going to consider yourself an altar that is in a restored state of being, if you are wanting to be in unity with me, if you are wanting to be in agreement with me, if you are wanting to walk according to my word, and so far to this point the commandments that I've given you, because he's about to unload on Moses a whole bunch of statutes, and hopefully Moses is a fast writer, or at least a fast, well, he didn't have to worry about it the first time because Elohim just dashed it on the stone. He had to carve it in there the second time around. But if I'm willing to do this and accept that I am a restored and established being, because Bana also means to be established in my Elohim, then I shall not build it of hewn stones. Okay? Hewn, the word for hewn is ga'ah. That means literally to cut off. Okay? So I'm not going to build my relationship with my Elohim if I am separated from him. Okay? But let's take that a little bit further. For if you lift up your tool upon it. Okay? So we have this word for tool, which is charav, that means to lay waste to something. If you don't take your relationship with Elohim seriously, and you lift up things that are going to cut you off from that relationship, to basically separate you and lay waste to that relationship, it's interesting that charav also means to make dry. What happens when something dries out? It loses what? Moisture. If I'm devoid of water, if I'm devoid of the word, then I'm separated from my Elohim. I'm making stone, that we said what was the other meaning aside from being in a pure state of being. I'm turning my heart hard, and I'm separating myself from Elohim. Okay? And in that event, you have profaned it. You have profaned the altar that you have just made. You've made it halal. You've made it a Muslim lamb chop. Oh wait, no. You've made it halal. You've made it defiled. Halal also means to dishonor the covenant of peace. Okay? So I dishonor my covenant if I choose to use something that defiles my relationship with Elohim and that causes me to cease to be restored and enter into a state of hewn stone, a separated heart from my Elohim. Okay? So neither shall you go up by steps unto my altar, that your nakedness not be uncovered on it. What does that mean? Okay. Did Ish and Isha recognize that they were naked prior to transgression? They were naked and they weren't ashamed. It's when I begin to recognize that I am all that in a bag of potato chips, that I actually profane the altar. And what happens when I begin to consider myself to be all that? I enter into a state of separation, and therefore I present myself naked to my Elohim, and as such I am a being that is without the covering. Basically, I present myself, well, I don't present myself because I'm in a state of separation. I don't recognize it. I'm naked. And if I'm naked, I cannot go up the steps unto my altar. I cannot enter into the presence of my Elohim if I am not flowing in the anointing of my Elohim, because I've allowed myself to become separated. I've allowed myself to step away. And it's interesting that it says, neither shall you go up by steps into my altar, when we go back up here and we understand that this idea of the first offering that's made is the burnt offering, is the ole, that means a staircase. That I'm made to be a staircase. But if I go up those steps in a state of separation, that I never quite come into echad with my Elohim. I'm never quite in agreement. What causes that? Very simply, I get caught up in everything else that I'm doing, and I forget that I'm in a relationship with my Elohim. How do we resolve that? Yahusha gave us an answer. And again, we've talked about this a couple of times when he said, what is, somebody asked him, what's the most important commandment? He doesn't spit out a commandment. He spits out the Shema. That when I will take time, because in Deuteronomy it says, do it in the evening, or in the morning when you rise up, in the evening when you lie down. Talk about it here and talk about it there. When I take the time first thing in the morning to recognize my Elohim and where I am at that particular state in my relationship, that helps me immediately to be in that frame of mind. Sometimes people stop in midday to have the Shema again. We stop again to check and see where our progress is. And then at the end of the day, I check the Shema again. Where am I in my relationship? It's the last part of that. Yahuwah is echad. Okay? So if Yahuwah is in agreement and in unity with his word, have I been in agreement and in unity with his word as well? So all of that comes very important to understanding who we are, how we're made, what we're made to do between the giving of the commandments, where now I have a choice that I will listen to and apply everything that Yahuwah my Elohim has said, or I'm going to wait until someone reminds me of what it means. Okay, and that's what the choice was there. Because if I'm not aware of the commandments, okay, first three commandments deal with our relationship with Yahuwah Elohim. fourth commandment deals with our taking the time to stop and communicate with our Elohim and rest within our Elohim. The fifth commandment involves respecting our lives, and the last 5 commandments involve respecting the lives and property of other people. If I can't grasp those 10 commandments, then I can't really grasp what these 53 mitzvot are going to tell me. We have a verse in Torah that is mentioned 36 times. And basically it's Yahuwah Elohim telling the children of Israel, don't be bad to the stranger, because you need to remember that one time you were a stranger among them. It's mentioned 36 times throughout the Torah. In Mishpatim it's mentioned twice. Okay, we find it twice in Mishpatim. That we have to empathize, is empathy? We have to empathize with others. But what Mishpatim tells us in these 23 positive mitzvot and these 30 negative mitzvot, basically it tells us how to empathize with others in both positive and negative ways. And if you take the time to read them and tear these down into little pieces, there's a whole lot more to it than simply, if you're a slave and you've worked for your master and it's time for him to let you go, but you have a wife and children, and you know that if he lets you go, you can't take them with you because they belong to him. So you tell your master you love him, and he pokes an awl through your ear and nails it to a doorpost. Okay, great. It's kind of a barbaric concept. Again, the question that we ask in that is, what does it mean? There's a whole lot of mitzvot. You have an ox, and it gets away, and it was known to get away, and it was known to gore people, and you don't do anything about it. You're responsible, and you could be responsible up to, being put to death for it and all this other stuff. Again, what does it mean? And then there's others in there that we really need to pay attention to. If someone is in debt to you, and he gives you his coat as payment for that debt, make sure you give him his coat back before the evening comes so that he won't freeze to death. I can owe you, or you can owe me, but I have to care about you more than I care about me. The thing about don't take someone's tools that they make their livelihood as, payment. Okay? Well, you take somebody's tools that they're going to make a livelihood from. Well, they can't make a livelihood, so they can't survive. Think about the other person is basically what Mishpatim is all about. Which is interesting because these last three verses that we've just discussed deal with preparing us to be the right altar to accept these statutes and ordinances that come from Mishpatim. Relationships between husbands and wives, relationships between parents and children, relationships between owners of animals and their animals, relationships between enemies, not necessarily enemies, but relationships with that neighbor up the street that you can't stand. Says if you see him struggling with his donkey, help him with his donkey, whether you like him or not. But lots of stuff in Mishpatim, and we're going to take some more of the lessons that we're getting on biblical studies this Tuesday, and we're going to tear down some of these verses. Rather, you're going to tear down some of these verses. I'm just going to sit back and listen. And but this was really heavy on, not heavy. It was on my heart. This particular set of verses hit me the other day. Like I said, I was gonna abandon them because you got to teach the Torah portion, right? And then it comes up again today and it says, I'm going to put you asleep if you try to if you try to do something with Parsha Mishpatim. So I have a blank piece of paper, or I have a blank new page on my Word that says Parsha Mishpatim.